Hello and welcome to the Chop House podcast. This episode 5 of the Ever Wonder series, where we got Owen Lake on as I wondered who was the man behind Monument Cycling. We discuss everything about the British domestic scene and the things that might need to be looked at to save it. And this insightful conversation, we go from race organisations to discussing social media and how that is affected, and that's how he does his job basically, and where he's come from to get to where he is today, managing the digital production company that is Monument HQ or Monument Cycling. I really hope you enjoy this conversation. I had an incredible time talking to Owen, and I really hope you enjoy. So without further ado, let's get into the conversation with Owen. I hope you enjoy. Ciao.
You could be looking at £1,000 per motorbike. So we did like buy one get one free for women. Like the most viewed video that I have is 120 million views.
What is Monument HQ from your perspective, and why have you called it Monument HQ?
I guess we'll start off with like Monument Cycling is like a full circle agency, as it were, but it does like live social and video production for generally for like sports teams, sports organizations, and rights holders, which is the boring part. But for me, it's a way to like channel all the energy that I had when I stopped racing to put that back into the sport. And it's a bit of a cliche, but like give something back.
Yeah.
And it ended up being Monument Cycling and then Monument HQ. The real kind of boring answer is that I went through hundreds of names.
It's a hard thing
And
to
this
do, isn't
being
it?
like the 2020s, you know, like there were not that many names left.
No, yeah, you're about 10 years too late to get in the original tag, weren't you?
Yeah, man, I wanted like a 3 or 4 letter domain
Yeah,
name, and it was just not
yeah,
happening.
no, not possible. All gone, all
Yeah,
gone. So, yeah, I read your background was in studying law at university, right?
definitely.
So, and on your website, you said you dropped it all to go and do the thing that you love to do. And as you just said, you were racing before it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
and then you want to give it back into that sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
How did law influence that Monument HQ?
law, like, you know, at the risk of kind of having a stay in school kids message, like it was really useful. You know,
Yeah.
firstly, evidently, I was not good enough to be like a fully fledged professional cyclist. So having that backup was massive, but
Yeah.
it gave me an opportunity to like explore how the rest of the world worked. Law in particular is like a very vocational subject. Like it's something that is really applicable to everything that happens, whether it's like going and buying something, like buying some bread from the bakery, or writing a contract with like
Yeah.
agency clients. Like it's helped me massively, and having that as an option after I stopped racing was huge. But I never really wanted. Don't let my dad hear this. Like, I really wanted to be
You're the
able
one
to.
that's going to hopefully promote this as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was something that you just did, but like my passion was cycling, you know,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
felt um running my own business, you know, was something that was really cool, and the law actually had taught me how to do. I knew the bare bones of like what world I was stepping into. So it wasn't something that just like I did at uni and then forgot about. And I studied at the Open University as well, so I could do that
Okay.
while I was racing, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Because like you know, right now you're studying, and I guess like balancing that. Like, how do you even balance that, man? Like, like
It,
at a
it's it,
physical.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's difficult, but yeah, it's always possible. And well, we're doing this now, aren't we? I've got a break, and we're doing this now. So But you must have been at quite a big crossroads going forward.
Oh yeah,
What
like
was the case?
yeah. So I finished my degree and did like man, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I I
Yeah.
it was like there was no clear path set in my head, so a lot of people will say finish their uni degree and
Mm,
they'll have jobs lined up, or
mm,
they'll really know what they want to do. Maybe they'll have a job or an employer that they want to go and do.
mm.
um I I did not have that at all. So I just spent like a year or so in the wilderness, like working at my local cafe and my local
Yeah,
cycling cafe. And it, yeah, it was something that I just stumbled into, really. Like I wanted to give back, so my local racing league, the
yeah.
Hog Hill League,
Oh, best
needed a
best
new
track,
organizer. Yeah, man,
best
Hog
best
Hill
best
it makes
circuit.
champions.
Oh yeah.
Teo,
Yeah.
Teo
I
was
think I've
racing
got
there.
75% or something win rate there. It's yeah,
Oh my
it's
god, like
I go there, I have to win there. That's it.
that is
Yeah.
my crown gone. Like you can have that.
Yeah.
It's like any claim I had to that, you can have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Hog Hill League needed a new organizer, and I was like, well, something to do, something to put on the CV as well.
Mm,
Um, and it was this way of staying involved in the sport, like a sport I really loved. So
yeah.
jumped
That's
into that,
crucial.
and at that point, like I didn't know that I wanted to go full time into like working in the industry of cycling. Like I
Yeah.
still applied for jobs in law and like local law firms and went through all the processes there. And it was only a few years later, once I'd run the Hog Hill League for a bit, jumped in the deep end with like the Saffron Walden Grand Prix and really started going all in on cycling. I was like, you know what? Law can take a back seat. Had like a heart to heart with with my
Yeah.
parents, and I was like, I'm gonna take a bit of a risk and start my own
Mm.
company.
Because
Um,
you have those crossroads and you can see both paths all the way to the end, can't you?
mm.
Was was that the case, and that one path was a lot more clear than the other paths, and the gut instinct was directing you down that end?
The path that was really clear
Yeah.
was law. Like
Right.
it's a well trodden path.
Yeah.
Like so, going down that route would have been simple. You go and get maybe qualify as a lawyer.
Yeah.
Like I'd done my degree,
Yeah.
but I hadn't done the LPC. I hadn't
In
qualified yet.
yeah. In terms of clarity, it would have been that's laid out.
Oh,
Every step is clear as day. But
so
in
much.
terms of for your personal, clarity, kind of,
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
inside you, that gut, that feeling, that image in your head, and what you wanted to get. You talked about the notepad, which we'll get onto, but you had that image of what you wanted to maybe achieve, or what could it be possible, and I
Yeah, like
guess that's the clarity.
I've had a vision for like how cycling should be since I was
Yeah,
much younger, since like while I was racing, and I found this notepad the other day. It's years old, and I showed it to my now wife, who like literally was my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, oh my god, like look at this. This is what I thought cycling should be 10 years ago, and we're not really any closer to that. But I had this vision, and it was something that was close to me, something I cared about, and I was like, well, why not try and make this vision a reality, or do what I can, like chip away at the edges. People like GCN and Eurosport, they have the real power, the Tour de France. But
yeah,
if I can support that in my own little way, in like our own little corner of the cycling world, like, why not? What's the worst that'll happen?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and with that, it's just preserving that domestic scene that we had for the 10 years between 2012 and
Yeah.
around that time to 2016, 2018 sort of period, and just to preserve that is, I think, so crucial, because it was so respected in that time. Like,
Mm.
how
Yeah.
how how do you see, is that completely lost, or is that still kind of salvageable to be able to regain some of that respect that the scene had in,
It's
in that?
it's always salvageable. Like I raced in that time, and while
Yeah,
I was, in terms of domestic scene, like the top level was always um Conti pushing on Pro Conti. We had teams like Rafa Condor, and then latterly like JLT Condor. Teams at that level were incredibly good, with like incredibly good riders that were the same age as me, but I always felt they should have a pathway. Maybe for whatever reason they weren't going to get to the world tour, but they were definitely good enough to make a living. And these guys slowly, one by one, like the team started folding, the riders started retiring, and I'm like, you're only like 27, you know, or younger, and you're retiring, but you're like world class. Like, what is going on here? And I guess it was this maybe a misguided hope that I can make it so that people like that don't have to struggle. Like there is a career path for them where they can represent the teams, represent their sponsors, and like give hope and kind of inspiration to young kids that cycling is something they should do, and even to like adults who maybe want to pick up a bike for the first time and go like first time in 20 years. Those people really should like be supported, and watching that scene wither away was kind of painful, but I don't think it's, if I accepted that it was gone, I'd like it would be very difficult for me to do what I want to do. Yeah, exactly. I'd be putting myself out of a job, wouldn't I? I don't think it's gone. Like I really think that there's always like these embers burning away and people who want to support it. And you just look at like the top level of the sport where we have incredible British riders who have come through the system and come through the British cycling scene, who are just showing like what this talent level that is there.
I think this has been one of the biggest years for British riders to be getting pro contracts and world tour contracts. Like there's so many of them getting renewed and brand new contracts. So that's inspiring to see that generation that's inspired from 2012 is 10 years later starting to pay dividends there.
It's something that needs like, it needs nurturing and it needs caring for, but it's like it's never dead.
No. That memory of that memory of that 2012 period to 2016 is still alive, then it will continue to grow and burn. But you're doing, like you say, that inspiration for adults getting back on the bike, the kids that are starting out getting out on the bike, which is where all of us have come from. You're doing that through your digital production on social media and using that platform. And you said, oh no, the last podcast was Inigo Hawkins, and we talked about the power of social media, but it's a powerful platform to be able to achieve that. No,
massively. Like, so full disclosure, Monument Cycling does actually do work for British cycling. Like we're a partner that helps deliver the social.
You did. The recent one was Beaumont and the Curlew Cup, right?
Yes, and then we've had a couple of the cyclocross rounds as well.
Sure.
And like, so I get to see both sides of this and see like this huge organization that is trying to help the entirety of cycling in the UK, which is a big ask, and the individuals in that organization as well who really want to do what they can. So, you know, how they handle it as like a national governing body, but also how Monument Cycling as nowadays, like we're a publisher, really. Like we've got tens of thousands of followers. We hit something like I mean, I'm doing the analytics right now, but we hit like 80 million views this year, which is insane. And the hope for next year is that we grow even further. Like we didn't focus on TikTok, didn't focus on Twitter, didn't focus on Facebook. So like there's room for growth there.
Oh, for sure.
But we're reaching millions of people who have an appetite for this sport, and this sport in this country as well. Like that's what's happening. You're building these relationships with people who you never knew before, but you've got this shared love of the sport and the sport in the UK. It's so powerful, you know. Like it's definitely the way forward, and it's only going to grow more as we keep going forward.
For me personally, the thing that really captures the essence of what you're doing and what draws me in is those memories from races and those key moments and the inspiration that comes from to aspire to be like that. And even some of them are in recent memory, some of them are more distant memory. The distant memories are obviously the brightest for me personally, but even those recent ones, it's like, oh, actually, even a year ago, this scene was still one of the best going. But
Yeah.
At the highest, national series level in like Beaumont, the gaps between the first 15 is just unlike anything else. But
Yeah.
that's what does it for me. Those highlight videos from the past to inspire for the future is the
Yeah.
biggest thing.
That's kind of it comes from two levels. Like there's the um my own nostalgia, like I have the editorial stance, don't I? So I can
Yeah,
editorial control. So I look at these people, a lot of them I'm racing against, and I'm like, yeah, man, this is sick. Like I want to, let's for me, let's throw back to a recent one, like when Ian Stannard won in the Tour of Britain in like 2018.
oh,
Like these are my memories here. So
oh
it's
yeah, there's
I
it going
love
off
it.
in my head as well. I can see
Yeah,
that, man. I can
and
see that
people
so
see
clear.
that and they're like, wow. And it's, it is inspiring. You do have this sort of rose tinted nostalgia about it, which makes it even nicer. And it, it's something that I love doing. Like it really does, um, like light a fire in people. They're like, yeah, I want to see that. And then they think maybe I can be like that. And, hopefully going forward, like we're putting in a lot of work to show the current scene as well. Next year is all about like, okay, how do we build a scene around the riders we have? Like everyone knows Tom Pidcock, so how can we make a scene around like about Tom, like about you? Like how can we make people know who you are, and when they see a post with you, they're just like, boom, click like, or share it,
Yeah,
or show their friends like, oh wow, did you see Tom? Or like Rob Scott, we put something up about him the other
yeah,
day, and
yeah.
like he's an incredible rider, but people won't know him in the same way that they
No.
know a much bigger
I
name.
think,
Which,
yeah, the perfect example of that for me is during a race where we race Canyon at UCI
mm,
2.1, and in the briefings they give us numbers and you circle the numbers, and the people to like everyone does
yeah,
that. You circle the numbers that you want to
who
keep an
to
eye on in
watch.
that race.
Yeah.
None of the British riders were ticked and circled. I
Oh,
think that just goes to say, I was like, no, 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 no. This guy is going to be in the
yeah,
top 10. And they got 3 in the first breakaway in the top 10. So I was
exactly.
like, it's
He's
just it's so unknown who they are, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you having you said like a Belgian following as well.
Yeah.
Like I want other countries to see what the British scene has to offer. Like something that I'm really passionate about is how like Legion of LA have made the American scene this big like larger than life thing, and people love it. But there's like a sense of ownership over the British scene when people are like, wow, the American scene's the best in the world. This is incredible. I want to see you racing, whoever. And I'm like, ah, I mean, obviously the British scene is better.
Yeah.
So I want people to see that, to see it from my perspective, and create this friendly competition where people are like, wow, I want to see Justin Williams racing Rob Scott, or
Yeah.
whoever. I want to see this competition between the
Yeah.
two different scenes. And if somebody thinks the American scene's better than the British scene, like that's fine. But I want them to see the British scene before they discount it. And right now, it feels like, as you're saying there, like they're discounting riders that they have no idea who they are, but they are definitely like pro Conti or World Tour level. Like they
Yeah.
just need to be given a shot.
Yeah. Just that avenue to be able to go in and get a look in, isn't it?
Mm,
And talking on that, the scenes and what each aspect has to, the crit scene in America is without doubt incredible.
yeah.
What I would want to see is everyone come to the tour series and have a go and see
They
how.
wouldn't know what hit them. They would.
No,
I honestly
that,
think that. I don't think they
yeah,
would know.
no.
Like it's it's
It's the thought in both our heads is just like everyone would get.
I mean,
Well,
like, yeah, if I'm throwing out there things like Tour Series is better than the US crit scene, I've got to back that up. So, otherwise I'm gonna have people coming at me.
yeah,
Um, we like repeatedly have. I mean, Tom Pidcock has won races in the British crit scene. Like, can you imagine? Like, he won the national championships when he was a junior, like the
yeah.
national crit champs, and like, can you
Was
imagine
it
turning up to a crit and you're
17? I
racing
think he
him?
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's he beat people like John Mould, who was a Commonwealth Games medalist,
Yep.
Ed Clancy, who's like an Olympian, like
Mm,
Olympian and world champion. Like these, that's the level of people that are racing in the British crit scene, and it that's why I just want to see this competition, this friendly competition. But I want to see people, and that's better for the sport as well.
yeah.
If you have people going, no, Justin Williams or Corey Williams is better, like or Luke Lamperti, who's like smashing it. He came over here and won
Yeah.
the Lincoln Grand Prix, and then we're here saying like, oh no, have you seen the next big thing? Like it would just be so good and good for the sport to have that sort of discourse online about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, do you have your own organizational race entry system? Am I correct in saying that, or
You
have
mean
I
for
got
like
like a?
for monument cycling
Yeah.
races, or
Yeah.
well, like I've not run a race for like since COVID. So I
Yeah.
was like one of the first to when I could see COVID on the horizon. I was like, I'm not running a race during a like
Yeah.
global health
Money
emergency.
down the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's and putting. We didn't know what it was when it first came up, so I was like, I'm not putting lives at risk. So we didn't know what it was going to be. But since then, the nature of it is that monument cycling has grown out of that more as a publisher and an agency, helping at like a structural level than an individual level.
Mm,
I thought, I was like, if I run one race or a small race series, I'm going to help X number of people. But if I can kind of have something that affects the entire country, like that's going to do so much more good. So I made sure, like the Hog Hill League, I'm I'm good friends with Ian Watson, who runs Team LDN, and I was like, dude, like I still want this to run. So here you go. Like if you want to run this, you can run it, and any profits then he can put into Team LDN, his women's elite team, which is awesome. Like
mm.
it's better than me doing nothing with this race or not having my whole heart in it. So it was about finding ways that I can do more, and um, going back to the idea of like a race entry system, like the things like that are all about how you can improve the whole aspect of the sport. So we did
Mm.
like buy one get one free for women, like, which seemed to blow some people's minds, and I was like, this is not like this is like marketing 101.
Mm.
We were trying to encourage women to race,
Yeah.
so
Why not?
give
Yeah.
them cool deals.
Yeah.
And it firstly it worked, and secondly it showed that if you think outside the box of just the BC race system,
Yeah.
like there are ways that you can help the sport and go about things in your own way that
It's,
that have a real positive impact.
yeah. That's the biggest thing that from being a student and being around those kind of students that are, they love the sport and they love cycling and they want to race, but that race entry to things like national bees and those other sort that higher level racing that they can do, but those entries are just too expensive
It's
to
so
justify.
expensive, man. Like
And
I
it's
don't
like
even know what is it now, like 35 quid or
30.
something. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like why would you
Yeah.
do that? Belgium's still
No.
like €5 or €10, isn't it? And you get
10,
five back.
yeah, €10 for a non-Belgian license holder. Yeah.
that's that's
And you get
so
5
expensive.
from just finishing in the top 20.
Yeah,
You get half your money back just by finishing in the top. Just by handing your number back, you get 5
yeah.
back
There are
just by
like
doing that.
there are like infrastructure and logistical reasons for this difference,
Yeah.
and almost like problems that we cannot solve on our
Mm.
level, because it's like government, local government, and police. Like they
Yeah.
have these requirements, and we have to fulfill them. Belgium will have different requirements. But why not just put on cool races in different places that don't need,
Right.
you don't have to put on a race that's going to be really expensive, or put on more circuit races on purpose-built tracks. Like there are ways to bring these costs down, or just like don't, like, we didn't really make a profit on Hog Hill League. Like, we were giving entries away to people to just give back to the sport and encourage them to race.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think a lot of people are trying to make a profit, but they should go into it like, I just want to, just
They can't be
going to break
making
even. I'm going to
losses.
look at the
Yeah.
cheapest way to get people into the sport.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's how you grow. And but I don't know. I
And
say
it
that I
is
shouldn't really be like encouraging people to not make money. That feels like a bad thing to do.
yeah, when you're in this state of the costs though that it does put onto race, I think I read somewhere it's like £1,000 just for
That's
the
insane.
police hiring, and I'm like,
Mm.
huh?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
how?
if
Yeah.
you're running a big race like national series level, and you need police motorbikes, you could be looking at £1,000 per motorbike. Like that's yeah, I know, man. Like that's crazy. Yeah,
Mm,
and that's not like we can't do anything about. We can't negotiate that price.
no.
I think
Because
that's what it was in
that's
Essex for
that's
shows.
for full race closure, right?
That's like a rolling road closure.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah,
same sort of thing the Tour of Britain will have. So
yeah,
you can imagine the costs of something like the Tour of Britain, or just a
yeah.
national series race. If you need 10 motorbikes, police
Mm,
motorbikes, even if you get a good deal from them, you're still well into the thousands, just for the police motorbikes before you even think about
yeah,
anything else.
that's,
Um, it's it's painful. It
mm,
really is. And we see it with some of the big races that inflation is making every cost go up, and
yeah.
they're struggling. So
That's the biggest challenge that we've got to face at this point, isn't it? Then,
yeah,
yeah,
100%. Like and there's nothing really we can do about it. These are
no,
like global issues causing like inflation and price rises on a national level. Like that's what are we meant to do as like riders or race organizers? Like
mm,
all we can do is try and make the sport more attractive so that the sponsors want to be a part of it and will pay and cover those costs, which
yeah,
is where monument cycling is now like coming in. That's what I'm trying to do, and
yeah,
help race organizers and show that there's a scene. So if
yeah.
we can do that, that will make a small difference. That'll be nice.
You said on the website you're a two. Oh, it's on the website. You're under events and you got a partnerships team member as well. It
Hmm.
cannot just be two of you.
No, like so
Okay. Okay. Good.
it,
Yeah. That
it's a
would that
lot
would be
less than you
very
think.
impressive. But
It is a
yeah.
lot less than you think. Like so Toby's great. He helps more. Like we've got some ideas for bike races, and he's leading more on the partnership side of that, um more than anything. Then obviously there's me, and I don't know what you'd call me, a bad manager. I don't know.
Not from what I can see, mate.
It's cheers. um and then there's a lot of just help and support behind the scenes. Like
Yeah.
I've got people who just offer ideas, or I might come up against a problem I've never seen before, and they may have, and they'll be like, yeah, man, this is how I've dealt with that in the past. But like it's there's but most of it is just me. Like it really is. I've got a guy, Harry Johnson. He's good.
Yeah.
Shout out to Harry. Um, he helps with like design stuff and video editing and things like that. He does a great job helping there, and script writing as well. And like there are a few kind of freelancers that we use for the agency work. Um,
Sure.
but I'm the only full time employee of my monument,
So,
so it's
do you do some of the digital production yourself?
a lot of it. Yeah,
A lot
I
of it
never thought
yourself.
I'd be doing like yeah, man. I I never did like IT or whatever. I played
Mm,
games and stuff when I was a kid. I was a bit of a nerd, which is cool. And now I do a huge amount of video editing, design work, Photoshop, like these things that I never thought I'd be able to do.
completely self-taught.
Pretty much, yeah. Like it's and you're like, cheers. Now I do work as well for like Velon. So
Yeah.
this is literally the highest level of the sport, and someone like it's proven that somebody who's self-taught, like I studied law, like what's that got to do with it? But now I'm producing like the most viewed video that I have is 120 million views. Like, so you can learn how to do these
Just
things
the
with no
brain
formal
can't
training.
comprehend that, man. That's insane.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's more than the number of people that really are like into cycling. I think we tapped into like comedy or something,
Yeah,
something like that on the
probably.
algorithm. I don't know
Yeah.
how.
Yeah, there's not that many cycling fans in the world, surely not.
Exactly.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that social media, you can just hit so many different target audiences. It's like, it's not just in the newspaper that you're just targeting the British scene. Like, it just goes all around the world that anyone can see what's going on here. And if you make it exciting enough, that Pidcock, that Wembley Tour series, I've just got engraved in my head when Pidcock won that, and it's like everyone had a chance to see that with the content that you've been putting out, because obviously in recent years that video coverage of the races has decreased. But
Well, I think the guys at Sweet Spot who run the tour series have been really good, like kind of adopting this forward-looking way of doing it, and I have worked with them, and they've been really great with that, and seen the work that we can do to like bring on the sport. And as you said, like that Tom Pidcock Wembley thing happened years ago, but if we can give it a new lease of life now, that's brilliant. And maybe those sponsors or those teams don't exist anymore, but the next sponsor or team like yeah, I want to be a part of that. I want to get involved. Which is why it's so great. Like you with this podcast, like people like you who want to do something for the sport and reach more people. Like, there's nothing to stop you becoming like the next like Lantern Rouge or something like that. Like that would be cool, but for you to be British based, focusing on the British scene, like that would be sick. I'd really like, that's
job
something I
offer?
want to
No.
do. Yeah, I don't know how we can get there. I'll do my best.
Yeah.
I'll try and help.
Maybe in a few years.
You could be like a host. Does Monument Cycling need hosts yet? We could do that. Heard it here first.
Idea on the notepad for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
How much of that notepad has come to fruition however many years later? When did you start this project, by the way?
So Monument Cycling was like incorporated November 2017. That's when it like officially started. This notepad, oh man, I can't even think how old that is. I reckon
Congratulations on 5 years of being incorporated.
yeah, fight on. My head still said 3. Like I literally thought you were 3 years. Oh, it's terrible. I think this notepad and the kind of concept is like 10 years old. And what has been really reassuring is seeing like GCN have come in, and they've managed to do like a lot of the things. GCN and kind of Discovery, like because there's Eurosport and Discovery. They're doing a huge amount of good for the scene, which is massive. But there's still a lot to go. Like there's still a lot on this, and I've got like nobody's allowed to see the huge pile of sheets of paper notes that I've got hidden down here. I was tidying up. I'm like, I'll chuck them there. Every day having like new ideas, and it's like this could work, this could work, this could work. I remember seeing Eminem had like a notepad, like reams of paper, and someone was like, "Can I read that?" He's like, "No, like these are not ideas for anyone to see, but they're just his like brain." Like vomiting it out onto a piece of paper, and that's
I can
how it
just
feels.
imagine them all across that wall behind you, and then you just try to script them all down.
My wife does project management, and she's like, I need to wean you off of notepads. But there's something satisfying about like I've got an idea, I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah, it's not the same as typing on the laptop, is it?
No,
It's not
just
quite the
feels
same.
like it feels like it disappears there. I know it's not. Like if anything, it's more permanent really if I put it on the cloud. But I like to write it down, scribble through it, cross through it, and I can draw things and get these ideas out. And even if they're rubbish ideas, like they're not anything that's ever going to see the light of day. It's just it's like a creative process for me. just throwing down.
Mm.
It's like if I'm coming up with titles for a YouTube video, I'm going to write like 10, 20 different titles, and 19 of them are never going to get used. But that one that does, you're like, well, it's going to be a good
Yeah.
one. It's beating the
Yeah.
other load.
And how important is that, just sitting on that content and just making sure it's good? Because you said 10 years in the notepad, you're just writing ideas, right? Just to get the right ideas before you start implementing them.
Yeah, we've got Harry made an incredible video for the Tour of Britain, but because the Tour of Britain got cut short, like we'll just sit on this for next year. Like we're gonna sit on it for a whole year because we think, like, I think it's such a good
That
idea.
good.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and we could put it out over winter, or and there are a lot of videos that we've got like that, and a lot of ideas. You could put them out now, but you could put it out at this exact moment, and whether that moment is next year for a particular race, or if that moment is like 5 years time when some other things might have happened, or it's an idea that you've got sitting there hoping that a certain situation happens, maybe with a rider or something like that. And if it never happens, it never happens. But if it does,
Yeah.
like, you've got that idea and you can go, click, boom, that's ready to go.
So
um
that recency and trend, as it were,
mm,
on social media is so important to that reach and getting your content seen just out of
yeah,
recency. Is that the key
yeah,
to it,
exactly.
I guess?
So I'd rather sit on an idea to hit it at the right moment than put it out at the wrong time. Like, we see this with like the work we do with Velon.
Mm.
um Something like a race finish, Velon, you've got every major race. So, like, let's say Il Lombardia, like, you could have the race finish. You want that race finish to go up straight away. Like having that almost being instant is
Mm.
super important. Um, if you leave that even a few days, you're going to get much less engagement. So timing things right on social media is huge, and it's because it's an algorithm. Like,
Yeah.
I've got to play to the whims of algorithms. Ugh, like,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
don't care. They just care about what's good and like what's
Yeah.
recent, what's gonna hit properly, and
Mm. I mean,
kind of,
the Instagram one is notably quite difficult, and you said you hadn't reached out into TikTok quite yet, or to the same extent you've done Instagram. So
yeah,
I
the
guess
the
that could
TikTok
bring some more success.
TikTok we've got like, I think we've got like 10 million views on there right now,
Mm.
um, and a whole backlog of Instagram posts that we know what works that we can put up there.
Yeah.
But it's just this huge other world that we've not explored yet. So we
Yeah.
understand Instagram, that works. We've got a following there. We're building a following on TikTok, and that's like something that I'm pretty passionate is going to be one of the next big. I mean, it's already a huge platform, but it's going to be big. Um,
Next project. Yeah.
yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
for us, like, it's going to be a big
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
project. So there's still a lot to learn on these things, like like podcasting. Like, I did a few podcasts and I couldn't work it out, but your podcasts were pretty damn good, and like I swear you're getting more views than I and listens than I was. So it's taking what you're strong at and what you're good at, and just honing in on that, and dominating that one space, and then moving on to the next one.
Yeah. 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 Because with that bit, putting it on YouTube, then I'm slowly tapping into that video editing. However easy it
Mm.
is to edit a podcast, because it is pretty much one conversation, and you only need to chop out a little bit that you don't want me to put out. But it's just starting those little tips and tricks there, and hopefully maybe one day you get into that video space, Lantern Rouge, as you said, because there's
The
that.
podcasts are huge. Like,
Oh, so big.
before this, I was listening to a different podcast I listened to.
Yeah.
I'm just going around the house doing things, or working.
Yeah.
And that's why I started off in podcasts. For me, it just wasn't something that I uh, could really excel at. And I was like, okay, kind of return on investment of my time, I'll put my time somewhere else. And that's why, like, when I look at you doing this, I'm like, like keep doing it. This is exactly what we need, and what we need in the sport, and what we need particularly in the British cycling scene is more people
Yeah,
like you coming up and creating content and showing that there are these personalities that are worth following. Because from this, you'll have fans. You'll have people that go like, "Oh, I want Tom to win this race," and that's
yeah,
massive. You think Formula One, like you could have a video or photo of Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton, like no other context, but people will like love it. They'll devour that content, and
yeah.
that's what we need.
Yeah.
Maybe we won't quite get to the same level as Formula One, but we
I
can
mean,
try.
we've got the Netflix series coming next year, haven't we, for the Tour de
No, it's
France?
going
And
to
I
be
think
big.
we're going to have to, every cycling to an elite level has to take, that is our job when that
Mm,
comes out. We have to promote that like crazy to the people that don't watch that, um, that don't watch that
oh yeah,
regularly or intentionally. Like, that's our job to put it in front of them. Like, this is the sport that I'm doing. This is important information. This is good information on how it goes.
yeah.
Is it
Like
exciting? Is it
yeah,
exciting
I
for you?
don't know about you, but when I heard this was happening, I was like, oh my god, it's like
Yeah,
cycling's going mainstream. What the hell?
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
mad.
You
Uh,
saw what it did for F1, and F1 was, even though it's in a higher pay bracket, is a very similar to sport to cycling in terms
yeah,
of its structure. It's a more niche sport in terms of it's only got 20 drivers and 10 teams,
yeah,
but in terms of the way the sponsors are rounded up, the way the drivers are chosen, the way the drivers act around each other, it's all very, very, very similar. And
mm,
I think even though it is a grander sport in terms of its paycheck, it's still possible to achieve that levels of growth that they've seen
yeah.
with the Netflix series. So
100%. Like, do you
yeah,
do you think that we're gonna see, like, firstly, Drive to Survive? I've not watched that yet. My wife doesn't want to watch it, so I like, you know, we normally watch similar things. So I'm like, sitting on that, waiting for an opportunity when I have the TV free. But I even just seeing the clips from it, like I see it's more than just on Netflix. It's created this
yeah,
whole ecosystem of content, and I can see that happening with the World Tour of Cycling. But I don't know if that's gonna trickle down. Like, are we gonna
yeah.
have trickle down economics of Drive to Survive or Ride to Survive? I don't know. Like,
I hope so. I really
yeah,
hope so, because
massive.
it's a great opportunity to expand what the Tour de France is rather than just a 200k flat stage.
Mm,
And it was so good that this year's tour was one of the best in recent memory.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
And I mean,
yeah,
every year now it seems like it's getting better and better. Like it,
yeah,
and that's something that if we see that for the World Tour scene, why can't we see that for the British scene?
yeah.
And rather than
If
seeing
Dura
it,
Ace can trickle down into 105, why can't
oh
World
my
Tour
god,
trickle down into British?
hopefully not in the same way, because like 105 is so expensive now. Like, what's even
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
going on there, man?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
no, but it's
but
like, is that something that you with this,
yeah.
like this whole podcast, the content that you create around it? Are you looking at ways already to try and like capitalize on this?
I haven't thought about that, but in terms of my career, I'm just trying to keep as many options and opportunities open, and just to
Mm,
expand that water. First with that communication, and then with my experience in the sport, the amount of tactical ideas that I've got in my head. I look at a Lanterne Rouge video, I'm like, you missed about 10 there, mate.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like,
That's something that I
I'm
see
not I'm not
having
big enough yet, and I don't have enough of that following to therefore share that
yeah,
with people, because if I share that, then I'm just giving away information for free, and
yeah.
I do think
That's
it's good information. So
that's something that is almost a problem with social media. I see. You race at an elite level. You understand the sport. You understand what's happening in races, um, and you'll have a different take on things to Lantern Rouge. Some things that they're so astute. Him and Benji, like they
oh
pick
yeah,
up
I
on
could,
things that you wouldn't normally pick up on, and like that's
yeah,
shown from the fact that Jumbo Visma like hired them to
yeah,
do video analysis and race analysis. but I'm sure you'll still have different opinions. Like I definitely
Yeah.
have different opinions when watching
Like
their videos. I'm
it's
like,
the
I know, I
background
think
that
it
you
should have
have,
been
isn't it?
this.
Like
Yeah, and it's
he's come from law and as well, like you,
yeah,
and
true.
he's got that aspect to look on.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he's not. They've not got the background in elite racing that you or I might have, and I think there are like voices like yours that really need to be um, amplified. But right now, as you say, like if you say disagreed with something on his video, or like one of my takes on my videos, people would be like, ah, yeah, but who are you? And it's like
Mm.
that shouldn't be the way. But unfortunately, it is with social media that there are like
Yeah.
uh, these smaller expert voices are kind of drowned out by the super
Mm.
fans of the much wider scene,
Yeah.
um, which
Yeah.
it feels like a shame, but hopefully something that we can, trying to
Yeah.
cultivate a community in cycling and British scene where that's not the case, where like an expert can stand up and say, well, actually, this is probably how it should be, and people will
Yeah.
stop and pay attention and listen. Um, that's kind of one of the dreams I have with the community that we're building with Monument. Like it's more inclusive, more open.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully less toxic than F1 Twitter.
Oh
Yeah,
god, don't.
yeah,
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 that's
yeah.
quite bad.
We've got to make sure it's a nice chill place where you can just be like, that was incredible,
Yeah, we all
or
love cycling, so
exactly.
it's. I've never been too like stuck up on one rider or one team. So like if I want, I don't know, Wout van Aert to win a race, if Julian Alaphilippe wins or Van der Poel wins, I'm
Yeah,
not I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to be
yeah,
angry.
yeah.
I'm
So
just
long as it was spectacular. It's like,
exactly. I'm more interested in the racing, and that's
yeah,
where like Monument has come from, is giving this like equal representation to every team, every rider,
yeah,
whether they won the race or not.
yeah,
Just trying to find the stories, trying to
yeah,
find where we can tell a really interesting narrative that could be anyone, doesn't have to be our favorite rider, and
yeah.
and and that way we can give other people the option, and they can decide who they support and who they don't.
Like it's always the entertainers that get the biggest clout in the sport, isn't it? You might have not won the stage, but if you gave it some grit and entertainment halfway through and pushed it right to the end, you
Yeah,
get as much. You get as almost as much as winning that race because you've made that race, as it were.
yeah.
And
Which, but
that's
it's that has a flip side, which is
yeah,
on social media.
yeah. You
Um,
don't see that.
the biggest entertainers on social media are not necessarily the people um, that deserve to had a great performance, but maybe they didn't talk about it afterwards.
Yeah,
So we like Monument's job is to highlight them as well. If they're not going to speak for their own achievements,
yeah,
if I can recognize them and give them a wider platform, I'm going to do that. And the people who can speak for themselves, like awesome, we can help them and amplify them. But it's not for me, it's not a personality contest where there's one winner. It needs to be like where everyone like everyone wins. It's like everyone
yeah,
wins or no one wins for me. Like that's the way that I see it. There's a football team and people can name every rider on that football team. But every rider on that football team, every player on that football team. um, yeah, there's like people can name every player on a football team, but they might only be able to name one pro cyclist. I want them to be able to name every pro rider on a team.
yeah, yeah,
And that that's where we've got to be able to amplify their voices if they're not going to do it for themselves, if they don't feel comfortable doing that for themselves.
yeah. I can see that. I've felt that in the past, and I think I've recognized that what you're saying there, and that is the biggest thing, to be able to blow your own trumpet a little bit. And
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I don't do it with Monument. Like coming on this
yeah,
podcast, I was like, I don't want to be the face of Monument
yeah,
Cycling,
yeah.
but I have to be
That
because of the
throws my
nature.
title out of the water.
What
Yeah.
what was the title going to be?
It was like I think it was just a working one, but who was the man behind Monument HQ? I'm
I
like,
mean, that's
nah.
but that's it, isn't it? I
Yeah,
I I chose very early on that this was going to be like Monument Cycling, not Owen Lake Cycling. This
yeah,
this was this was not me. This was not about me. This was about helping the sport. And I very reluctantly have become the face of monument cycling. And I realize now that I have to be more public and speak more and
Yeah.
have opinions that people can agree or disagree with. But that will help in turn grow monument, which will help grow the British cycling scene. Um, but that's not necessarily a role that I wanted it to be. I kind of liked anonymity
Yeah.
before.
It's nice, but yeah, it is nice to be that private self and only put out what you need to put out. But when you need to put a face on it, then that's when it gets scary and real. And I
Yeah,
guess that's the stage that I'm at with this podcast and going into next year and beyond. I need
yeah.
to start putting that face, more importantly, that voice to what I'm doing.
Well, you're
Um,
doing it incredibly with this. Like I started a podcast that didn't have my face in it. This podcast has your face. Like people can learn who you are and start to build a relationship with you because they see you. Um, when I started the Monument Cycling YouTube channel, I literally asked around friends and people like, could you be the presenter? Because I didn't want to be the
mm,
presenter. Now I have to be the presenter. But that
yeah,
that's fine, and that means that people can build those relationships with everyone in the sport, not just the riders, but the media creators, the
yeah,
journalists, the reporters,
yeah.
um, people like Robin Davidson on Twitter. I think it's Davidson. Robin, she's
Robin.
Robin. You know,
Oh, Robin.
Robin
Yes,
on
we know
exactly,
Robin.
yeah.
Yeah,
Robin on Twitter. Like
yeah,
people build a relationship with her and they like her viewpoint on the sport, and that's what you're doing here. And I think even if you felt you didn't want to have a public persona, well, you do now, and it's a good
yeah,
one. So like,
yeah.
lean into
Okay,
it.
I appreciate that, but yeah. Yeah, because with the news next year and beyond, it is important with sponsors and just people in that
Yeah.
supporting corner really, and just have that backing. But yeah, it's
Oh yeah, 100%. Like if I was running a team and I had two riders of equal ability, and one of them had 1 million followers and one of them had 10, I'm going to choose the 1 million followers. And my sponsors are going to choose the 1 million followers. Like it simply does not matter. These teams are businesses at the end of the day, and they have businesses
yeah,
supporting them.
yeah.
So
If they can get that avenue out into another country where they can then get their sponsor's name out
yeah,
there, because this team is it's a Belgian team. People know of it as a Belgian team, but if I can bring that over to Europe, like I've
yeah,
done with the other three teams that I've been on, it's like, oh, actually, that's Mini Disco, or
yeah, and it's a
yeah,
it's a global world now. Like
yeah,
the
exactly,
the idea. I think it was that was it. The Cavendish, who should have been running for his record, Eddie Merckx
mm,
record breaking Tour de
yeah,
France stage win this
yeah,
year.
yeah,
Um, he wasn't taken, and one of the arguments against taking him was like, Quick Step are a Belgian team with Belgian sponsors. I'm like, dude, I get adverts for Quick Step here in the UK. Like this is a global world, and most sponsors
mm,
who have cash to throw into a team have some sort of global or international presence.
yeah,
I think how incredible that would have been to have Cavendish win. Like that will go down in history, and Quick Step have lost that chance now. In all likelihood, like he's going to B&B hotels, or
yeah,
they will have a historic photo and historic clip of Cavendish in that jersey if he breaks the record.
yeah.
And like people, fans,
It
Patrick,
wasn't just
like,
British people that wanted to see that,
oh
was it?
no,
You had
and
the whole world.
even
It's
if it
like,
is like
yeah,
the UK, the US, they're two of the
mm,
biggest markets in the world. Like
mm,
why wouldn't you want to
yeah,
um sell and have a huge event for
coverage,
them like that?
yeah,
It blew my mind. And
mm,
if I was one of Patrick Lefevre's sponsors, I would have been like, dude, what are you doing? Like we sell to these countries, or we want to sell to these countries, we want to grow in these countries.
mm,
Why not? Like
yeah,
you can either have one one stage win from one rider, or you can have a historic stage win in an English speaking country. Like, well, it just, that's kind of me going off on a rant on a tangent, but it felt like something that made no sense, and I'm sure it ties into something on a wider on a wider scale in cycling. Don't
Yeah,
know what. I'll leave
somewhere.
that to you.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, you say he's a catalyst for me. I watched him on Guildford Town Centre
Yeah.
High Street coming up in the World Champs in 2012. That was one that stuck in the
Yeah.
memory.
Oh man, that was insane. That was an incredible win. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, like 30-second sprint up there, full gas on the left-hand side, the right-hand side on the smooth section
Yeah.
when it was actually rough cobbles.
Yes, cobbles. Yeah.
Because they resurfaced it 2 years later, and so it was when it was rough cobbles, and I had memories from there. That's where you got that image of the world champion up there. Is that's what kind of inspires me to go forward. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's what, if those things aren't televised, or maybe they're televised on like kind of some form of legacy media, like non-terrestrial, like the televised normally, that's not where young people are spending their time. Young people are spending their time on social media, on YouTube. Like they're getting clips DM'd to them, or through WhatsApp or Snapchat or anything. Like, if you're not utilizing that, and the Tour de France like doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, they don't jump on that in the same way that other sports have. When we look at what Formula One does, like they just own social media. I think they were the most engaging sporting league in the world. There's so much growth that cycling could have, and I would rather the people saw cycling and thought, I want to ride a bike, rather than go like, I want to support motorsport, or any other sport, but certainly in like the wider context of
where the future is.
Like I would rather people want to ride a bike.
Well, thank you for being here, Owen. I hope your time at the Chopper House was good.
Man,
and I hope you want to be back in the future.
100%. I loved it. Thank you very much for being such a great host as well. Appreciate it.
Well, that was Owen Lake. I really, really enjoyed that conversation, and I hope you did too, folks. Thank you very much to Owen for his time in joining me for this conversation. Very much a needed conversation about the British cycling scene and the way it's heading and what we can do about it. You can find Owen on all the links down in the description, and please leave a like and subscribe, because it does help the channel out and keeps it growing in the direction that I envisage it. So please do support the channel, and I really hope you enjoyed the conversation. Have a great day. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you soon. Ciao.